I'm Elex Michaelson in Washington, where this week we transferred power amidst unprecedented security concerns and unprecedented challenges for those in power. We speak with Alex Padilla, the new senator from California, Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace with his analysis, and my special reflections on a historic week we won't soon forget. A very special edition of The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, California's only statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
Welcome to a very special edition of The Issue Is. Reporting from Washington this week, I'm Elex Michaelson. Of course, the big story in the nation's capital this week, the start of a brand new administration and a brand new era as Joe Biden becomes president and Californian Kamala Harris becomes vice president. But the other story of this week is with Kamala Harris leaving the Senate, Alex Padilla taking over as the newest senator from California and the first Latino to ever be in that office. And joining us now in his first local interview since taking office is the newest senator from California, Alex Padilla. First time I get to say this, Senator Padilla. Welcome to The Issue Is, and how's that sound?
It sounds great, sinking in more and more each day. But, what a week filled with emotions for a lot of people, including me and my family, a lot of reflection about the state of our nation, and certainly a lot of history being made, as you said.
So when you took that oath this week and you looked around in that chamber and you got your desk and you're looking around at all these people that many of whom have been in politics for decades, what went through your mind reflecting on that kid from Los Angeles?
What a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous responsibility to bring my voice to the deliberations of the United States Senate. But we're also hopeful with the beginning of a new administration and the hope and optimism that the inauguration of President Biden, Vice President Harris represents, but sobered by the task at hand. Starting with the COVID-19 pandemic, it continues to ravage communities throughout California, throughout the country, frankly. And even once you start turning the corner on that, having to revisit issues of underlying inequity in education, in healthcare, in the economy, and so much more. So we have a lot of work to do, but if we can capture just some of that energy and optimism from this week into the weeks and months ahead, hopefully we can make a lot of progress.
I want to talk more about COVID in a second, but I do want to talk more about you for a moment. When Governor Newsom first asked you to do this job, you teared up when he brought up your mother. And I was wondering if you were thinking about her and thinking about your family, thinking about your kids as you took that oath.
Again, another example of sort of the mixed emotions. As proud as I know my family is, it frankly broke my heart to not be able to have my wife and my children with me on this, historic day for the community and for our family. Between traveling cross country, given the risks of the pandemic, the security situation at the Capitol, we decided that they'd stay back. So I had them in with me in spirit, my brother, my sister, my dad, and to honor my mom. The Bible I was holding when I raised my right hand to take the oath was my mom's Bible and a prayer card from her funeral. So the Padilla family was definitely strong in spirit.
Let's talk for a moment also about witnessing the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. As a member of Congress, you got one of the few seats that was available to people to actually be there in person. Describe what that was like to actually be there and witness it.
First thing, woke up this morning, it was the only thing on the news when Trump was leaving the White House. It felt like there was a weight being lifted. It was certainly a big relief to know that as a nation, we're turning the corner when it comes to leadership, not from a partisan perspective, just from a fundamental spirit perspective. What President Biden oozes is that, service and call for unity, which was the theme of the inauguration. That's what we're going to have to do to tackle both short-term issues like the COVID-19 pandemic and a lot of the longer-term issues.
So what do we do about COVID-19? What specifically are we going to see happen in the next few weeks to help the people of California?
Yeah, well, first, we know the situation is dire, and it is completely a result of a failure of national leadership and a cohesive national plan over the last 10 months. That's why people are hopeful now with an administration, starting with President Biden, that actually, believes in science and data. So what has he called for on day one? Number one, 100 million vaccinations in 100 days, 100 days of everybody wearing a mask, the very basic things that public health experts have been pleading with us to do since the beginning of the pandemic.
Even Governor Newsom has said that California's vaccine rollout has not been especially good. What do you think is going wrong in California? Are you frustrated that things aren't moving faster?
A little frustrated, to be honest. Look, this is very personal to me. My father is 80 years old, so he got the word that, everybody over 65 is now eligible, but Los Angeles County is very different than other counties in California. So he had to wait a little bit longer than if he lived in another county. I think, the biggest part of the bad deal that the governor was dealt by the Trump administration is bad information on the first batch of vaccines being delivered to California. It was nowhere near the supply that they had originally been promised. And so how do you develop a responsible plan when you don't know when the second batch is coming or how many is going to be in the second batch, and if you can count on that number to be delivered?
And now, can you believe that you got to run for Senate in like less than 2 years? Are you thinking about that? And how do you make your mark now in that race?
Well, that's how it goes. The appointment is simply for the balance of the term left by now Vice President Harris. So do intend to be on the ballot for re-election in 2022. Just a reminder that I have no time to lose. I have some key staff in place, but looking to hire a few more to help me hit the ground running and to deliver for California. And on the political side, yes, we'll ramp up the re-election sooner rather than later. And we have this, personal family adjustment to make.
Last question. On the issue of your family, you posted a picture of you reading the Constitution with your son right before you left for Washington, D.C. And I'm wondering what you're telling them about this moment.
So when I asked my youngest, Diego, who's a kindergartner, if he knew what a senator was, he said, it's a lawmaker. So kudos to his kindergarten teacher. So our other sons, when we asked them if they knew what was happening, they said, look, it was important for Joe Biden to be elected president of the United States, and now Dad gets to go to Washington to help him.
Very nice. Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations, Senator, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Our thanks to Senator Alex Padilla. Coming up next, analysis on this historic week from Fox News' Chris Wallace. But as we go to break, some music from Demi Lovato and the Celebrating America concert. Justin Timberlake at the Celebrating America concert this week. That moment went viral. Another moment went viral as well from Inauguration Day. The analysis of my next guest talking about Joe Biden's inauguration address. Take a look.
I thought it was a great speech. I've been listening to these inaugural addresses since 1961. John F. Kennedy, Ask Not. I thought this was the best inaugural address I ever heard. Obviously, a lot of this event today.
Chris Wallace is, of course, the host of Fox News Sunday. He has moderated multiple presidential debates, and he's won pretty much every award there is to win in journalism and worked for pretty much every network there is to work for as well. Chris Wallace, welcome to The Issue Is for the first time.
Yes, delighted to be with you, Alex.
So let's start with Joe Biden and start with your remarks. What made you think that this was such an effective inauguration address, and what do you make of his first week in office?
Well, two reasons for my rave review about the speech. First of all, you have to view it in the context that just 14 days before Biden delivered that address on the inaugural platform, on that very same spot, you had a mob of insurrectionists who invaded the Capitol and tried to prevent our elected leaders from fulfilling their constitutional duties. So when Joe Biden, in that context, said that our democracy is fragile, our democracy has prevailed, I thought it had a real emotional resonance to it. The second reason I liked it so much is that I thought the tone was just right. Joe talking over the backyard fence to his neighbors saying, look, we have got to turn down the temperature. We've got to start listening to ourselves. American politics can no longer be a blood sport. And I thought that was very effective. As far as the first week has gone, some people are saying, oh, my gosh, he talked about unity, and then he's pushing his agenda. I don't know what they thought he was going to do. Obviously, he made campaign promises. Obviously, he ran on different issues than Donald Trump did. When he called for unity, I don't think he was saying that there can be no dissent. He's saying democracy is going to work, but it needs to work in a civil way that we have lost.
As you mentioned, though, talking about unity is one thing. When it comes to the details, that's where some of the division comes. That building behind me, Congress hard at work for many years. It hasn't worked all that well. Do you think we actually have a real chance at bipartisan compromise? And what issues do you think you could see some agreement on?
Well, it's a very good question. And you've got Joe Biden, who was a creature of the Senate in the 70s and 80s and 90s, early 2000s. And he is in effect, calling for a return for the way it used to be when you had John McCain on the right and Ted Kennedy on the left. And they would get together and negotiate, and nobody would get everything they wanted, but everybody would get something. I think there is a legitimate question, Alex, as to whether or not that kind of politics exists anymore, whether we have become so polarized that you can't get people legislating again, doing what they were elected to do. If there is any issue on which you would think they'd be able to do it, it would be COVID.
One story, of course, of this week is the start of the Biden administration. The other big story, the end of the Trump administration. I talked with your Fox News colleague, Bret Baier, about President Trump's legacy. Here's what he had to say.
All of those policy accomplishments, the president could have focused on that, on the dismount, on the exit. But instead, really, January 6th, I think, is going to be in the history books, and it will be marked forever that way.
Do you agree with that? And what do you make of President Trump's legacy?
Well, look, it's complicated. Nobody's legacy, no president's legacy is simple. There are some aspects that I think were very strong. He gave a tremendous boost to the economy before COVID. We saw, extraordinary numbers in terms of employment, record low unemployment nationally, among minorities, among women. I think he did some good things in foreign policy. On the other hand, the biggest crisis of his administration, which was COVID, I think you could argue that that he didn't handle very well. I think he turned it into a political issue where suddenly something as simple as wearing a mask became a test as to whether you were a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal. And it was just a question of simple science. This is public health. And then I do agree with Bret that I think he very much sullied his reputation with his actions, really not just on January 6th. I think the whole 2 months from Election Day on, had he, just sort of as a thought experiment, had Donald Trump accepted the results of the election at some point, long before, well, he really never did, and held a normal transition and met with Joe Biden in the Oval Office and attended the inauguration, think how different his exit from Washington and from the public scene would have been. Look, I'm not going to diminish Donald Trump's hold. He got 74 million votes, and you got to figure that tens of those millions would still vote for him for president, maybe not all of them. So he's still a major political figure in this country, but I think he did himself no favors in the way he handled his defeat and everything that followed from that.
The media changed so much during the Trump era. We're going to talk about that when we come back with Chris. What does the media look like post-Trump? But as we go to break, some more music. Here's John Legend feeling good at the Celebrating America concert.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured.
That was Joe Biden speaking during his inauguration address. During part of that, I was thinking of our guest this week, Chris Wallace, the anchor of Fox News Sunday, of course, the moderator of that first presidential debate.
True. You're going to have
True.
Gentlemen.
Joe Biden's main point was like, let's take a deep breath, let's listen to each other. You were front and center when Donald Trump and Joe Biden were essentially screaming at each other, and there was no listening at all, it seemed like, during that first debate. I'm wondering if what Joe Biden said there, do you think that is realistic, given the way that the media has changed, especially when it comes to cable news, social media, and the echo chambers that so many people live in?
I thought one of the most powerful lines in Biden's inaugural address was when he said there is truth and there are lies, and the lies are spread for power and profit. Look, I think that Donald Trump is primarily responsible for what happened over the last 4 years, when he talked about fake news, when he talked about the media is the enemy of the American people. That was outrageous and very damaging to our democracy. But having said that, I think that his excesses allowed provoked some of my colleagues in the media to do excesses of their own. Some of the coverage of President Trump, some of the questioning of President Trump, as somebody who covered Ronald Reagan for 6 years in his White House, I was shocked by. I thought it was disrespectful. I thought it was just not reporting. It was advocacy. And I think that's a huge mistake for reporters. I think we need to stay in our lane, cover the news, not expound on it. I mean, there's a place for opinions, but it's not among straight news reporters, and particularly not among reporters in the Washington press corps. And I hope we go somewhat back to the old standards that I learned when I was covering Ronald Reagan, as I say. But the problem is that there is profit in opinion, profit on the right, profit on the left, and it's going to be hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
I mean, where do you see media going now? Donald Trump got more attention than any person on the planet over the last 4 years. Love him or hate him, he was great for ratings. And now he's leaving the stage. I'm curious what you think he's going to do next, and how does the media evolve now that he's not president?
It'll be interesting to see how long that holds on. Can he hold on? He's talking about conceivably running for office again in 4 years. A week is an eternity in politics. 4 years is an era. I have my questions as to whether or not he can hold on to center stage among Republicans and conservatives for 4 years. As far as the media is concerned, as I said, there is profit in opinion, and there's no question you're going to continue to see that, particularly on cable news. I just hope that the people on the news side of the business, the people in the White House briefing room, the people like me doing a Sunday talk show, or you doing a weekend show, that we stay in our lane. And I think our lane is not pushing an agenda, not pulling punches. And I view my job as being the cop on the beat, swinging a nightstick and trying to keep them all honest: Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals.
Well, I'm glad that we have some distance so I can be away from your nightstick right now, Chris Wallace. We want to have some fun here on the issue as we play a game called Personal Issues. This is where we put 30 seconds up on the clock. We ask you some rapid-fire questions to get to know you better. Who is Chris Wallace? You ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. What is your favorite TV show to binge right now?
Oh, well, I just finished Bridgerton. Although, no, I got a new show, Money Heist on Netflix. Fantastic. Watch it.
So good. I love that show. Favorite food?
Chicken.
Favorite movie of all time?
That's hard. Godfather, Casablanca, Citizen Kane. I'd say those three.
That's old school. You're right in line with AFI on that one. And lastly, who is your role model?
Are you kidding? I mean, obviously my dad. And people always say, did you learn how to do a stand-up some way or that? No, I just saw somebody practicing journalism at the highest standards, and I've tried to emulate that.
Of course, Mike Wallace, one of the greatest of all time to do it. Chris Wallace, one of the greatest all time to do it. A huge honor to have you on our show. Chris Wallace, thank you so much for being on The Issue Is.
I very much enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
Excellent. As we go to break, we want to let you know that their highlights of this week's interviews are available on the Issue Is Twitter page at The Issue Is. My reflections in a moment, but first, more music. This from John Bon Jovi. Here Comes the Sun.
Sun, 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 here it comes.
Welcome back to a special edition of The Issue Is from Washington. This week, when we walked around the city, we saw something unlike we've ever seen before. A city locked down with security that felt like something out of a science fiction novel. This is as close as the general public can get to the inauguration. You see here fencing, plus barbed wires, and National Guardsmen on the other side. We spoke to folks while reporting for Fox 11 News this week about what it's like to be in this city.
It's sad. It almost makes me want to cry. Like, you look around and it's just supposed to be so much more.
Among all the things that have been taken from us, the joy of the inauguration has been also taken.
That stark reality, a reminder of all of the different crises that our country is facing right now, including the coronavirus, with hundreds of thousands of flags representing the hundreds of thousands of people not here this week because of COVID-19. So we end this week with music from Garth Brooks, a Republican who came here to sing Amazing Grace, a song about hurt and about healing. I'm Elex Michaelson, reporting from Washington. See you next week from California.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.